I am your host, Gary Vaynerchuk, and this, my friends, is the Thunder Show, aka the Internet's most passionate wine program, and I have the privilege, we're still in Nashville.
Yes, we are.
I take a lot of shows. Your first time, Peter?
Yes, first time in Nashville. Yours as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I have the privilege of having Peter Mondavi here with me to talk about Charles Krug. Peter's here for the same reason I am, this great wine auction charity event in Nashville. And we're going to sit down with 3 of his wines here right now and do a little bit of an interview style and have a little fun with Peter. So Peter, thanks for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
Well, I appreciate it. So why don't you tell the Vayner Nation, actually I've got a cool little idea. Stay here.
Okay, we'll do.
I'm going a little improv. Let's mix it up a little bit. Let's do interview style first.
Okay.
Try something
We can handle
new.
that.
Yeah. Why don't you tell the maniacs out there a little bit about your history, Charles Krug's history, a little bit of that, because I think that's where it gets extremely fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's very complex. It's very rich. It goes way back. And I don't want to bore you with all the details, but just give you a high-level part of it is going back to 1825. Charles Krug was born in Prussia, grew up not to be a vintner, but to be a journalist, and in fact, a radical journalist, to the point where he was thrown in jail. And once he got out of jail, got kicked out of his country, and we were fortunate enough to have him settle in San Francisco, where he continued his radical writings for a German newspaper there. But he got the home winemaking bug, traveling up north to Sonoma County and Napa County area, and got more and more involved with home winemaking.
And what was going on in the Sonoma Napa area at this point?
But really at that point, vineyards had been planted. However, there was no commercial wine production going on, especially in Napa. So it's really in its infancy, and it's all more home winemaking, things like that, for just local consumption right there. So he got married, received a dowry of 600 acres of land. I know. If we could only carry that on today. So on this property, he of course established his winery, Charles Krug Winery. This is 1861, making it the very first commercial winery in Napa Valley.
And I see you start promoting that right there.
Yes,
it's quite nice.
I
like how you did that with the packaging.
First in Napa Valley on there to focus on that as well. So he truly was the forefather of the Napa Valley wine industry. And then built it up. In fact, some of the people who founded other wineries in the area actually worked under Charles Krug as cellar masters, things like that. So he really encouraged the development of the industry. So by the turn of the century, I think it was 80, 90 wineries, something like that in Napa Valley, up from 1 in 1861. He did pass away. The banker took it over, repossessed it. It was a James Moffat from San Francisco.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and
Vineyard, right?
he really didn't do anything for the business. He didn't propagate the wine business. However, he put a couple of weekend homes up there, and he would visit there on the weekends. Okay, that's the Charles Krug part of it. Let me go to my family's part of it. Again, going to the late 1800s. My grandparents, Cesare and Rosa Mondavi, were born in Italy, Sassorato, a little hilltop town. And they, in 1908, emigrated to the United States through Ellis Island. And in fact, my family visited there last year and saw the ship manifest.
That's
My grandfather
pretty cool.
had like $16 in his name when he came off that ship. Anyway,
It's a good number.
he went to, probably a lot back then.
Yeah, I think so. 16 sounds solid.
Yeah, so he went to Virginia.
I mean, heck, when you're getting 600 acres of land for free.
Why not? So he went to, Rosa, my grandparents, went to settle in Virginia, Minnesota, northern Minnesota area. Reason being is they had friends and relatives there and sponsors, I guess you had to have in those days. Sort of like Charles Krug, nothing to do with the wine business. Not back home in the old country, nor up in Virginia, Minnesota, of course. Iron mining community, my grandfather didn't like iron mining, so he started a little grocery store business. And then as the nation moved into Prohibition, a lot of Italians up in this area. Of course, they love their wine for everyday beverage. Sure. And not to knock the Minnesota winters, but you know, as we move into the Prohibition era, they just can't get access to their wine. You're not going to be growing grapes up there in those winters. Nope. And you're not buying it, of course, during Prohibition. So my grandfather started a business. He'd go to California, take a train to California, contract with grape farmers, wine grape farmers. And we get like Zinfandel, Carignan, and Alicante varieties. Have them hand-packed in 40-pound wooden lug boxes, loaded on rail cars, shipped out, sell these for homemade wine. Yep. Turned into a huge business during Prohibition. In fact, by the way, it was legal to produce about 220 gallons of homemade wine during Prohibition, as long as you didn't sell it, consumed it at home.
Right.
Turned into a big business, shipping wine, grapes from not only Minnesota, but New Jersey and Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, the whole northeastern part of the United States where a lot of the immigrants were. It's a huge, huge business. Moved the family out to California, Lodi, which is the heart of the fruit vegetable packing business back then, and furthered the business. And then after repeal, I wanted to get directly involved with the wine business. And through his endeavors, sourcing fruit or grapes from various parts of California, including North Coast, Napa, Sonoma areas, his clients always preferred and loved and would pay a premium for Napa fruit. So he thought that had the best prospect for premium winemaking. So looked up there in 1943, came across the Charles Krug winery. It was for sale. Mr. Moffat had it for sale. My grandparents bought it, bought the 150 acres which remained of the original estate, historical buildings, and of course the Charles Krug name for a grand sum of $75,000. So that's how we have the family name associated with the Charles Krug brand name. And this is where we get, again, a little more complicated. My uncle, Robert Mondavi, and of course my father, Peter Mondavi, refurbished the winery in 1943, resurrected the brand name, built it up, and then in 1965, my uncle Robert split off from us, went down south, only 7-8 miles or so, started his operation, of course, Robert Mondavi Winery. Shortly after that, we bought out his ownership of Charles Krug. And then we continued further, built up the business, and then my dad had a philosophy: if you're making premium wines, the caliber we're striving for, the best way to do it is control the vineyards, control your fruit source. How do you do that? You buy the land.
Yep.
And he was fortunate, insightful. He started buying land in the late 60s, early 70s. He went on a massive land buying spree and bought a series of properties. And these were not vineyards. These were, fallow land, dairy land, pear orchards. I remember one summer Mark and I had to make pear wine in the lab to figure out what to do with all the pear fruit. Fortunately, we never made it commercially. And so he bought this land, but he stopped buying when the prices hit about $8,000 an acre. Back then, I think it was expensive, but today, God, $150,000 to $300,000 is the range for an acre of vineyard land in Napa Valley. So we're very fortunate because we have vineyards in Howell Mountain, St. Helena, Yountville, and down in Carneros.
How many acres do you guys have?
We have
planted?
Total, we have 850 land acres. We have about 500 that are actually planted today. So
and what is the total production of Charles Krug?
Charles Krug, we have 8 varieties total. Total production today is about 65,000 cases. Medium size in Napa Valley. Right. So.
And what is your day-to-day job these days?
Day-to-day job, a little bit of everything.
Jack of all trades?
Jack of all trades. I mean, because I oversee the vineyards, I oversee the winemaking, and of course I travel a lot for marketing, getting the word out, talking to distributors, retailers, and restaurateurs.
And the brand is in all 50 states or no?
Yes. Reason being is we've been so established. It's been in my family for over 65 years. So because of that, we've had very long-term relationships with all the distributors around the country.
And what family members are involved now?
It's myself, my brother Mark, and my father, who will be turning 95 in November.
God bless.
So
you guys have good genes in your family.
We do have some solid genes.
Yeah,
he gets to the office almost every day.
And what's his scene these days? What's going on with Pops? Is he?
He stirs the pot.
He does, right?
Yeah, he comes in and still espouses a lot of his winemaking techniques, which some we use, some we don't. Some we moved on. Some we come back to. But he has a wealth of knowledge and experience.
What does he think of the wine industry today?
It's a bit mind-boggling, especially as he looks at the microcosm of Napa Valley as opposed to the whole thing. But Napa Valley, there were less than, actually I think it was a half a dozen wineries up until the late 60s. Today there's over 400 wineries, and I'm talking about Napa Valley only. So it's amazing what he has seen since the 40s. With half a dozen wineries up to now, over 400 wineries, and all these, people from, he used to go to the functions, the vintner functions. Right. He stopped doing that, 10, 15 years ago. One, they're a lot younger. Two is he doesn't know anybody, because all these new people have been coming over the years.
A lot of his contemporaries, obviously at that age, are not around. Does he still have an old school crowd he hangs out with once in a blue moon?
Yeah, he does.
Who's part of that gang?
Well, you got some of the members of the gala team. You got people from Sonoma, Parducci, Fabiano's.
Yes.
We really have to kind of extend beyond Napa Valley.
Sure.
And even like Dr. Dick Peterson,
Yep.
people like that. They're not as old as Dad.
He was
there's very few that are
left, unfortunately.
Mario Perinelli is, God, he's 97, 98, or something like that. So another one, but there isn't. They call it. Dad doesn't like the name. There's an old timers group that casually gets together every couple months, and these are people that the general public wouldn't, general wine consuming public wouldn't necessarily recognize. But these are the people behind the scenes
that built
really built the industry in the 50s and 60s.
When did you get involved?
Oh God, well.
I mean, always, but seriously,
well,
day to day.
Yeah, well, first involvement, first paycheck, 8 years old, doing odd jobs in the winery during the summer, working 4 hours a day, 50 cents an hour. Graduated 81.
Stanford,
day after,
right?
Yeah, day after graduation, the Monday after, straight to work.
Straight to work.
Yeah,
So for you, from the 81, I mean, you've seen a lot happen. I mean, a lot changed between 81 and, let's say, 91. That 10-year window had a lot of different growth in Napa.
Yeah, even when I was going to school up in the mid late 70s, actually more late 70s, coming home during weekends, things like that. And there is a lot of development, a lot of changes. But yeah, from when I was growing up as a kid, very rural, diverse agricultural community. Fine dining literally did not exist.
Sure.
Where fast forward today, first of all, it's all vineyards.
Yep.
Wall-to-wall vineyards as you drive through Napa Valley. Got some of the greatest dining the country has to offer. The selections that we have there are just unbelievable. Traffic to come with it.
29's a mess.
It is, and then just numerous wineries everywhere, and more popping up that I've never even heard of.
And how about your personal Judgment of Paris, experience? I mean, just the news of Napa getting on that kind of scene, that Time article. How did that first hit your radar? Did somebody call from home? Do you remember that at all? Did it even hit your radar?
I was in school. This is the 76 tasting of Paris. I was in school, so I kind of got wind through more of the news media at that point. But that was just call it one of those tipping points or whatever. Because I think there were visions of Napa Valley being of that stature, and to get a public, independent, third-party recognition from afar was monumental. Yes.
Did you remember thinking this is big, this is game-changing, or did it kind of just, because now it's so legendary, but at the time, it wasn't this huge article.
Yeah.
It gets blown up a little bit now. I'm just curious from your standpoint, being such a pioneer of this area, and since we're going to probably do a two-part episode now, because this is going to be the interview part, was it something that you recognized as being a big deal, or did you kind of think, cool? Where was your mindset on that?
Yeah, I think at that point, it's, God, this is neat. This is going to help us.
But you didn't
this is great.
It
this
didn't
is
seem
not,
like as profound as it now sounds.
Today, wine is so prolific throughout our society.
Sure.
Not necessarily consumption-wise, but knowledge-wise, interest-wise, news headings, whether it's health or lifestyle.
It's in the DNA of our culture.
Yeah. Mid-70s, it was not.
Right.
It was not. For instance, when I went to school some years ago, the non-existent wine club is at the graduate level. Today, it's the most populated social group on the campus is the wine club, just as an example of the interest level.
And that's not a very long time if you think about it.
Not really, no.
And how about press-wise? I mean, you've been in the wine industry and have watched things like the Wine Spectator and Robert Parker become bigger cultural things. Back then, was it local newspapers that meant more, individual? What was really driving third-party opinions? What was really driving the business in the early 80s?
I think,
let's say late 70s or 80s.
I would say it was not a lot of the press. It was a grassroots effort.
Retailers and restaurateurs?
Retailers, restaurateurs.
Who were the big retailers? I mean, was it Sam Aaron at Sherry Lehman's had a lot? I mean, who were some of the players? Do you remember?
I don't think there were not the retailers of the magnitude today.
Right.
Distribution system was incredibly fragmented. Just in
Lot
the
of
San
distributors,
Francisco Bay Area, right in our backyard, we had like a dozen distributors.
Right.
Right there. Very fragmented. The, Costco's didn't exist more.
Sure.
Weren't shipping wine to
Sure.
Costco's en masse like so many
Sure.
people are today, Safeways, things like that. So it was really more of the small mom and pop stores. What we did is we do a lot of just tasting, just basic education. We do a series at the winery. God, I think it's been going 50 years now. Tastings on the lawn. This is just, I think we're one of the first now probably to do these things. It was a tasting open to the public. And
that's how you
3
educate it.
tastings in August, and that's how we would educate. It was fundamentally a grassroots education. You didn't have the press nor the internet that you have today to really propagate the word.
When did you first realize the press had an impact? Do you remember the first time maybe a Spectator or Parker rated a Krug wine high and the phone rang off the hook or faxes? Do you remember a moment where you kind of said, wait a minute, because we, the late 80s into the 90s and to 2000s was I think the internet's going to kind of change this quite a bit, but that was the great era of the wine critic at some level. Do you remember that first moment to you that you said, okay, something's happening?
Not necessarily a single moment, but
when was it? Mid-80s, late 80s?
Yeah, mid to late 80s. You saw probably mid 80s, saw the development of both Parker and the Wine Spectator as the most dominant voices out there. And it's just solidified since then.
Did you ever have, do you remember any wine really getting impact?
Yeah, one wine, this goes back to when we were producing a Reserve Merlot.
Okay.
Family Reserve Merlot, and I'm trying to think, I think it was our 97 Merlot.
Okay.
And we had Robert Parker at the winery, who was not necessarily in love with Merlots.
Yep. Which is true.
Tasted it and fell in love with it and gave it a great rating, and so we had
phone calls
yeah,
back.
phone
All
calls.
the distributors came out of the woodwork,
exactly,
right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Very cool. So let me get a couple more rapid questions, just because this is the first ever interview style like this.
Okay.
So I'm having fun with it. We'll do the second part. Couple rapid questions. Number one, what's your favorite varietal now, at this moment? If somebody said, "I'll give you a varietal," what are you kind of drinking?
What am I drinking?
One answer, Peter. Don't get political.
Oh God, this is tough.
Push comes to shove.
Okay, a specific varietal, not a blend, right?
Not a blend.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go with Sauvignon Blanc.
Love it,
You're boxing me in.
I am boxing you in. You're in a little box right now. In this little. How about favorite wines right now? Again, because palates change. Outside the U.S., what are you intrigued by or excited about?
Okay, outside the U.S., probably some of the Shiraz out of out of Australia.
You like that?
Yeah.
The fruit is enticing to you?
Yeah, I like the fruit and to try. I have admittedly more of a New World palate.
Good.
Yeah.
How about favorite food?
Favorite food? Oh God, I have to go to my heritage, Italian.
Yeah.
Gnocchi, I always seek out gnocchi.
Nice.
And it's very difficult to find it the way my grandmother
made it.
But I always do try that whenever I do find it on the menu.
Sports. Do you like them? Do you follow
I am
them?
in the only sports, I know you're a sports fanatic. The only sports that I do follow to any degree is actually Formula One.
Really?
Yeah, motorsports. I'm a rarity in the United States.
Do you go to Montreal?
No, I have been to Indianapolis twice though.
Nice.
To see those.
Very cool.
Hopefully it's coming back to Indianapolis again.
And how about pop culture? Do you watch television at all?
Virtually zero.
What about, do you read a lot?
New York Times. That's
every day?
Pretty much every day.
Yeah. And what about technology? What's your favorite piece of technology right now?
Favorite piece of technology right now? I just got my new, recently, BlackBerry.
Love it?
And pretty much, the email, I go, what the hell do I email on? I hope I can say that. On a cell phone for, but you know what?
It comes in handy.
It comes in handy. It
Awesome.
definitely comes in handy. And then the pictures, and I go, phones came out with cameras.
Yep.
What do you need that for? I'm using it all the time. I'm taking pictures and sharing it and stuff like that.
Well, good. We're going to do the second part of this. Get ready to taste the wines. Thanks, Peter. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gary.
All right.